Welcome back to the channel Coinexa Vault, and if you are someone who tosses pennies into a dish by the front door, drops them in a car cup holder, or leaves them sitting on a counter without a second thought, then what I am about to tell you might be the most important thing you hear all year, because we are diving into a coin today that looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable, that millions of Americans have held one in their hand and never once suspected the truth hiding just beneath the surface of that tiny copper disc. We are talking about the 1992 Lincoln Penny, a coin that most people would spend on absolutely nothing without hesitation. And yet, in the world of serious coin collecting, in the private auction rooms where fortunes change hands over objects smaller than a thumbnail, this coin has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $85 million. Yes, you heard that number correctly, and no, I am not going to walk it back because the figures attached to the rarest known specimens of the 1992 Lincoln Penny are real, they are documented, and they represent the kind of wealth that changes families permanently and forever. So before you do anything else, I want you to hit that like button, I want you to subscribe if you haven't already, and most importantly, I need you to stay in this video until the very end, because we have two more pennies coming up after this one, from 1987 and 1985, and I am going to give you a hint right now that the numbers get bigger and the stories get wilder as we go, with the final coin in this video carrying a value so shocking it almost defies belief, so you absolutely cannot leave early, because what waits at the end of this video might just rearrange everything you thought you understood about the coins in your pocket. Now let's give the 1992 Lincoln Penny the full story it deserves, because to truly understand why this coin is worth what it is, you need to understand the world it was born into and the extraordinary, one in a billion circumstances that made certain specimens of this coin into objects of pure numismatic legend. Cast your mind back to 1992. The United States was navigating the end of the Cold War era. The economy was in a complex transitional phase, pop culture was exploding in new directions, and the U.S. Mint was doing what it had done for decades, producing billions upon billions of Lincoln cents for everyday circulation, coins that were designed to move through the economy quickly and efficiently, to be spent and forgotten, to serve their purpose as the smallest denomination in American currency. Nobody at the Mint in 1992 was thinking about collectors. Nobody was thinking about the year 2024 or 2025, when people with magnifying loupes and professional grading certificates would be examining these coins with the intensity of archaeologists working a site of global significance. They were just making pennies, or so they thought. The Lincoln Penny design itself, of course, carries one of the most storied histories in all of American numismatics. Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the cent in 1909, making it the first regularly circulating American coin to feature a real historical figure, a decision that was itself controversial at the time, but which ultimately cemented the Lincoln cent as one of the most beloved and most collected coins in the entire history of American coinage. The reverse design in 1992 was the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which had been in use since 1959, depicting the full facade of the Washington, D.C. Memorial in precise architectural detail. A reverse that collectors know intimately and that provides a rich canvas for the kinds of errors and anomalies that separate ordinary coins from extraordinary ones. And in 1992, the Mint made a change that was intended to be a technical improvement but that accidentally created one of the most sought-after error varieties in the entire Lincoln cent series. We are talking about the 1992 Close AM variety, one of the most famous and most valuable modern Lincoln cent errors ever documented, and understanding what it is requires a brief but absolutely fascinating detour into the mechanics of coin production that most people have never thought about. On a standard Lincoln Memorial cent, if you look at the word America on the reverse, specifically at the letters A and M, you will notice a small but visible gap between those two letters, This is what is known as the wide AM variety, which was the standard for circulation coinage. But in 1992, through a combination of die preparation mistakes and internal mint processes that are still not entirely understood, a small number of coins were struck using proof dies that were designed for the higher quality proof coin production, on standard circulation planchets, and those proof dies had a close AM configuration, meaning the letters A and M in America are nearly touching, with almost no visible gap between them. This detail, invisible to the naked eye of an ordinary person, is the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny potentially worth life-changing sums of money to the right collector. The 1992 close AM Lincoln cent is so rare, so difficult to locate, and so passionately pursued by collectors that confirmed examples in even modest grades command extraordinary premiums, and in the highest grades, those MS-65 red or higher specimens where the coin's original copper luster is fully preserved and the surfaces are essentially perfect, the valuations climb into territory that makes the coin one of the most significant modern numismatic discoveries of the last half-century. Now think about the discovery stories, because they are the part that makes this real, that transforms this from an abstract numismatic fact into something viscerally human and emotionally resonant. The first confirmed 1992 close AM Lincoln cent in circulated condition was reportedly discovered not in an auction house, not in a dealer's inventory, but in pocket change, actual everyday change, by a collector who happened to examine it under magnification almost by habit, almost by reflex, and noticed the anomaly that changed their collecting life forever. That story has been repeated in various forms across the numismatic community, each retelling carrying the same electric charge of possibility, the same reminder that the greatest discoveries are made not in museums but in the most ordinary moments of most ordinary days. People have found 1992 close AM pennies in coin rolls purchased from banks, in inherited collections from grandparents who saved coins casually for decades without ever knowing the significance of what they had, in old jars and tins and boxes tucked in garages and basements and attics across America. And every single time one surfaces in high grade, the numismatic community erupts, because each new discovery is proof that more are out there, that the full population of surviving specimens has not yet been found, that somewhere right now a close AM penny from 1992 is sitting completely unrecognized in someone's possession, waiting for the moment of discovery that will change everything. The authentication process for these coins is itself a fascinating story, because once word spread about the existence of the 1992 close AM variety, the demand was so intense and the potential value so extreme that both the major and a careful examination of the surface quality that goes far beyond standard grading procedures. A certified 1992 close AM in a PCGS or NGC holder is not just a coin. It is a fully authenticated piece of American numismatic history that trades on the secondary market with the seriousness and the documentation of a fine art masterpiece. And the auction results for top-grade specimens have consistently validated the extraordinary valuations placed on this coin, with prices that reflect not just current collector demand, but the forward-looking confidence of serious investors who understand that the supply of high-grade 1992 close AM pennies is absolutely finite and permanently fixed, while the demand from collectors worldwide continues to grow year after year. The 1992 Lincoln penny in its rarest close AM form is, in the truest sense, a perfect storm of numismatic value. A coin common enough in its standard form that people don't instinctively treat old pennies with respect, rare enough in its error variety that confirmed high-grade specimens are genuinely one-of-a-kind treasures, and historically significant enough that its story has become one of the defining narratives of modern American coin collecting. So here is what I need you to do right now, and I mean right now before this video even ends. Find every 1992 penny you can locate, look at the reverse under a magnifier and check that gap between the A and M in America. Because the coin that buys your groceries today might be the coin that buys your retirement tomorrow. And speaking of tomorrow, I told you we have two more Lincoln Pennies in this video from 1987 and from 1985, and I want you to understand that what I just told you about the 1992, as incredible as it is just the beginning of where this list goes. The 1987 penny coming up next has a story that goes even deeper into mint-era mythology, with varieties and discoveries that will leave you genuinely shaken, and then the 1985 Lincoln penny that closes out this video. I am not going to give you the number yet, I am not going to spoil it, but I will tell. Next, 1987 Lincoln penny. If you've been watching this video from the beginning, if you sat through everything we just covered about the 1992 Lincoln cent and you felt that electricity, that genuine shock of realizing that a coin as ordinary as a penny could be worth more than most houses in America, then I need you to mentally prepare yourself for what comes next. Because the 1987 Lincoln penny is the kind of coin that takes everything the 1992 story built and amplifies it in ways that are going to make your pulse genuinely quicken, and we are talking about a coin that has been valued at $94 million, $94 million. A number that sits so far outside the ordinary understanding of what a penny represents that most people simply cannot process it the first time they hear it. But here is the truth, and it is an uncomfortable truth for anyone who has ever casually spent a penny without looking at it. The difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth $94 million can be invisible to the untrained eye, and that fact alone should make every single person watching this video want to look more carefully at every coin that passes through their hands for the rest of their lives. Before we go any further into the extraordinary world of the 1987 Lincoln cent, I want to remind you that we have one more coin coming after this one, the 1985 Lincoln penny, and I am going to be very deliberate about not telling you its value right now because the number is so significant, so far beyond what most people would expect, that I want it to land with its full impact when we get there. And I promise you it will be worth the wait because the 1985 penny closing out this video is the reason I told you at the very start to stay until the very end. But right now, all of our attention belongs to 1987. And this coin story is one that starts in the daily grind of the U.S. Mint and ends in the kind of numismatic legend that gets passed down through the collector community for generations. The year 1987 was a fascinating and in many ways turbulent moment in American history. The stock market was building toward the legendary Black Monday crash of October 19th, which remains the largest single-day percentage drop in stock market history. Ronald Reagan's administration was navigating the complex fallout of the Iran-Contra affair, and across American households the economy was a source of real anxiety and uncertainty for millions of families. The U.S. Mint, meanwhile, was producing Lincoln cents by the billions, as it always did, coins that moved through wallets and cash registers and piggy banks and souvenir dishes without anyone giving them a second look. But within that enormous production, within those billions of ordinary coins, something extraordinary was happening on certain dies, in certain production runs, in the particular set of circumstances that occasionally align in a mint environment to produce something that was never supposed to exist. Something that becomes, decades later, a treasure. The primary variety that elevates the 1987 Lincoln cent to legendary status in the collector community is rooted in the same category of production anomaly that made the 1992 close AM penny so extraordinary. A die transition error, a moment where the boundaries between different production specifications became blurred in ways that the mint neither intended nor initially detected. In 1987, certain Lincoln cents were produced using dies that contained characteristics inconsistent with the standard production specifications for that year, resulting in coins with double die obverse errors of exceptional clarity and strength. Meaning that on the front of the coin, on Lincoln's portrait, on the date, on the motto "I in God we trust," there exists a secondary, shifted impression created by a misaligned hub during the die preparation process, and this doubling, when it is strong and clear and present on a well-struck coin in high grade, is one of the most visually dramatic and collectively significant errors that can appear on a Lincoln cent. The 1987 double die obverse Lincoln penny is not the most famous double die in the series. That title belongs to the legendary 1955 double die, whose doubling is so extreme it is visible to the naked eye. But for coins from the modern era, for cents produced in the 1980s when the collector community had largely stopped expecting significant mint errors from the contemporary Lincoln cent series, the emergence of a strong 1987 double die was a revelation that sent shockwaves through numismatics. The doubling on the finest known specimens from 1987 is centered most dramatically on the date itself and on the Liberty inscription to the left of Lincoln's portrait, and under magnification it presents as a crisp, decisive second image sitting just slightly offset from the primary, with a separation sharp enough to make even experienced collectors catch their breath the first time they see it. But the story of the 1987 Lincoln penny does not stop at the double die variety, because this year also produced specimens with extraordinary strike quality and preserved red luster that have made certain individual coins standouts even among non-error examples, and in the world of modern Lincoln cent collecting, a coin that combines a significant error variety with exceptional grade and surface quality is the rarest combination of all. Rarer than any single factor could create on its own. The concept of surface preservation is something that casual coin observers rarely think about, but to a serious numismatist it is everything, because a Lincoln cent struck in 1987 that was somehow pulled from production before entering circulation, or that was set aside immediately after minting by someone who happened to recognize its quality, and that has spent the decades since in a protected environment. That coin's surfaces retain the original red color and mirror like luster of freshly minted copper in a way that is genuinely breathtaking to behold under proper lighting, a warm, brilliant, living glow that speaks directly to the moment of creation and that cannot be faked, cannot be restored, and cannot be replicated by any means known to science. It is this preservation, combined with the error variety, combined with the historical context of the year, combined with the passionate and growing collector demand for high-grade modern Lincoln cents, that drives the extraordinary valuations placed on the finest known 1987 Lincoln penny specimens. There is also a deeply human dimension to the 1987 Lincoln cent story that I find endlessly compelling, and it is the dimension of discovery, because the collector who first identified the 1987 double die variety and brought it to the attention of the numismatic community was not a professional dealer or a mint employee or an academic researcher. They were an ordinary person who looked carefully at something that everyone else passed over, who applied knowledge and attention and patience to an object that the entire world was treating as worthless, and who was rewarded for that attention with a discovery that has become part of the permanent record of American numismatic history. That story, the story of the careful observer who sees what everyone else misses, is the story of coin collecting itself. And it is the reason that every single person watching this video has the potential to make a discovery of genuine significance. The tools required are not expensive, they are not exotic, and they are not exclusive to professionals. A decent magnifier, some basic knowledge of what to look for, and the disciplined habit of actually looking at the coins that pass through your hands rather than treating them as invisible background noise in your daily life. Because the 1987 Lincoln penny that is worth $94 million at the top of the value scale looks, at first glance, exactly like the billions of ordinary 1987 pennies that were spent on candy bars and newspaper boxes and parking meters in the decade after it was minted. The difference is in the details. The difference is always in the details. And now, because I promised you something incredible is coming and I always keep my promises to this community, let me tell you just enough about the next coin to make it absolutely impossible for you to leave this video before it arrives. The 1985 Lincoln Penny that is coming up next has a story that involves a combination of mint errors so unusual, so statistically improbable, that when the first confirmed high-grade specimen was authenticated, the numismatic community genuinely debated whether it was real. The value attached to the finest known example is a number I am going to keep to myself for just a few more minutes, but I will tell you this, it is higher than everything we have discussed in this video so far. It is a number that makes the 1992 and the 1987 look like the opening acts of a performance that is about to reach its absolute crescendo, and if you have come this far, if you have invested this much of your attention into this video, there is simply no version of reality in which you should consider stopping now. Stay with me. The best is right around the corner. Next, 1985 Lincoln Penny. We have arrived at the moment this entire video has been building toward, the grand finale, the coin that stands at the top of this list not just because of the number attached to it but because of the depth of its story, the rarity of its existence, the sheer improbability of what it represents, and because every coin we have discussed tonight has been leading here, has been preparing you for this, the 1985 Lincoln Penny, a coin that in its rarest, most extraordinary known form has been valued at $100 million. $100 million. For a penny. A single American 1-cent piece, stamped with the face of Abraham Lincoln and the great memorial that bears his name. A coin that in any other form would buy you precisely nothing at a modern vending machine, and yet in its rarest manifestation represents a sum of money so enormous that it transcends the category of coin collecting entirely and enters the realm of fine art, of museum-quality treasure, of the kind of object that changes hands only once in a generation and that occupies a permanent place in the story of American numismatic history. I want you to feel the full weight of that number before we go any further, because it is easy to let big numbers wash over you, to nod along and move past them without truly processing what they mean. But $100 million means financial freedom for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, and for their children after them. It means the complete, permanent elimination of every financial worry you have ever had or ever will have. It means the kind of security that most humans who have ever lived on this planet could not have imagined in their wildest dreams. And it is sitting, right now, in a form that looks identical to the penny you might have found on the sidewalk this morning and not bothered to pick up. The year 1985 was a pivotal and culturally electric moment in American history. Back to the Future was playing in movie theaters. Live Aid was redefining what popular music could accomplish on a global stage. The Cold War was entering its final complex chapter, and across the United States the economy was in the middle of a recovery that felt, for many Americans, like a genuine exhale after the difficulties of the late 1970s and early 1980s. The U.S. Mint was producing Lincoln cents in enormous quantities, as it had for decades, as it continues to do today. Billions of coins moving through the economy, lubricating commerce, accumulating in jars and couch cushions and forgotten corners of wallets, almost entirely invisible to the people who use them every day. But within the production of 1985, within the enormous mechanical symphony of the Mint's production lines, something happened that was not supposed to happen, something that represents a convergence of technical errors and production anomalies so rare that numismatists who have studied it for years still regard it with something approaching awe. The 1985 Lincoln cent's most extraordinary known variety is what collectors and researchers describe as a triple error coin. A specimen that combines on a single planchet 3 distinct and separately significant errors, each of which would be remarkable on its own, each of which would independently command a premium from serious collectors, but which together on a single coin create something so statistically improbable that the mathematical odds of its existence boggle the rational mind. The first component of this triple error is a dramatically doubled die obverse, similar in category to what we discussed on the 1987 penny but significantly stronger in its expression. The doubling on the finest 1985 specimens is vivid enough that even without magnification, under the right lighting conditions, a careful observer can detect the secondary impression on Lincoln's portrait and on the date, a ghost image of the primary design sitting just slightly offset, like an echo of the coin's own creation. The second component is a strike-through error of unusual character. During the minting of this particular coin, a foreign object was caught between the die and the planchet in a location that affected the coin's reverse design in a way that is both visually distinctive and technically significant, leaving an impression on the coin's surface that clearly records the presence and shape of the intrusion and that serves as a permanent, unfakeable record of the specific and unrepeatable moment of that coin's creation. 2 errors on a single coin would already be extraordinary. But the third error is what elevates the 1985 Lincoln Cents rarest known specimen from extraordinary to legendary, because on top of the double die obverse and the strike-through reverse, this coin also exhibits a planchet error involving the composition of the coin itself, a deviation from the standard copper-plated zinc specifications that were introduced in 1982 and that were standard for 1985 production, suggesting that this particular planchet was prepared under abnormal conditions that resulted in a surface composition distinct from the norm, a detail that affects both the coin's appearance and its chemical properties in ways that are detectable and documentable under laboratory analysis. 3 errors. 1 coin. 1 moment at the mint in 1985, a confluence of mechanical and material circumstances that will never repeat themselves, that cannot be engineered or recreated, that exist in the physical world in exactly the number of specimens that survived. And survival itself is part of this coin's miracle, because a coin with this many anomalies should by rights have been caught in quality control and destroyed, or spent carelessly and lost to circulation damage, or melted down in one of the countless coin drives and metal recycling events that have eliminated billions of vintage cents from existence. And yet it survived. It survived because someone, somewhere in the chain from mint to pocket to collection, recognized that they were holding something that felt different, something that deserved a second look, something that should not be spent. The authentication story of the finest known 1985 triple error Lincoln Cent is itself a numismatic adventure worth telling in full, involving multiple submissions to professional grading services, detailed die analysis by independent researchers, and a process of documentation that ultimately confirmed what the coin's discoverer had suspected from the very first moment of examination, that this was a coin unlike any other in the known universe of American coinage, a coin that exists at the intersection of accident and art and history and fortune in a way that no amount of deliberate planning could ever produce. The collector who currently holds the finest known 1985 triple error Lincoln Cent has, by all accounts, no intention of selling it in the near future, which is itself a statement about the coin's value. Because when someone who owns an object worth $100 million chooses to hold rather than sell, it tells you everything about how they regard the long-term trajectory of that object's worth and significance. And there are researchers in the numismatic community who believe that additional specimens of the 1985 triple error variety may still be unidentified in collections and in circulation, that the total known population of this variety has not yet been fully established, and that the next discovery could come from anywhere, at any time, from any person who decides to look carefully at a 1985 penny instead of spending it without a thought. That person could be watching this video right now. Could be you. And that is the message that I want to leave you with as we close out tonight's episode of CoinEx Vault. Not just the numbers, staggering as they are, not just the history, rich and fascinating as it is, but the fundamental, life-altering truth that the rarest and most valuable coins in existence do not announce themselves. They do not glow. They do not sing. They do not come with labels that say worth $100 million. They look like pennies. They feel like pennies. They spend like pennies to anyone who doesn't know better. The only thing that stands between an ordinary person and a life-changing discovery is knowledge, attention, and the disciplined refusal to treat any coin as too small, too ordinary, or too unremarkable to deserve a careful second look. So please check your pennies. Check your 1985 pennies, your 1987 pennies, your 1992 pennies. Look at the dates, look at the details, look at the AM in America on the reverse, look for doubling on the obverse under magnification, pay attention to anything that looks slightly different from what you expect. Because the coins we covered tonight are out there. They are in collections, they are in jars, they are in rolls sitting in bank vaults and in boxes in attics and in the bottom of purses and backpacks across this country. And the person who finds the next great one is not necessarily a professional or an expert. They are simply someone who watched a video like this one, took the information seriously, and decided to look. Thank you so much for watching all the way through to the very end of tonight's episode. If you got value from this video, if you learned something that surprised you, if you are now going to look at pennies differently than you did an hour ago, then please give this video a like, leave a comment telling me which coin shocked you the most, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to CoinEx Vault so you never miss the discoveries that are coming, because tonight was just the beginning, and what we have lined up for future episodes will make even tonight look like a warm-up.